Hey everybody, welcome back. We're reading Thomas Jefferson and the book titled The Art of Power. Okay, we're gonna pick up where we left off. And this is on page 38 towards the middle paragraph. It was a perilous trip. Twice on the first day, Jefferson's horse broke away from him, greatly endangering the breaking off my neck. Oh no! The second day brought terrible rains, and Jefferson could find no shelter on the road. The third day he was fording a stream and was nearly swamped by unexpected deep water. He was among strangers, too, for the first time in his life, seeing no face known to me before. Stopping in Annapolis, which he found extremely beautiful, and whose houses he thought rather better than those in Williamsburg, Jefferson was drawn to the Maryland Colonial Assembly. His descriptions of the chambers which he found wanting, and of the lawmakers whom he also found wanting, are rich in detail. He was not impressed by the appearance of the seriousness of the Maryland legislators. The seriousness of the Maryland legislators. Maybe they were just really kind of, with the stroke of my gavel, I can take your life away. He was snobbish about his fellow colonists. I was surprised on approaching it to hear as great a hubbub as you will usually observe at a public meeting of the planters of Virginia, Jefferson told Page. He noted that the speaker's wig was yellowed. Do you get it? He's complaining about the yellowness of the wig, because remember, it's supposed to be like grayish white. And to the young Virginian, the man had very little the air of a speaker. The air of a speaker. The close cataloguing of the assembly suggests his interests in the workings of power. It was natural for Jefferson, now a son of Williamsburg, to document his impressions of the seat of a neighboring colony. The spirit of the hour, meanwhile, was momentous. Quote, I would give you an account of the rejoicings here on the repeal of the Stamp Act, but this you will probably see in print before my letter can reach you. Indeed, the Stamp Act, they didn't want it, and they fought to not have it, and they won. I wonder if today, if anybody actually tried to protest taxes, like in France, the farmers, right, protested because they didn't want to use organic methods of growing agriculture, so they blocked the freeway with their tractors. Interesting. In London, Parliament had stood down for the stamp duties, but passed the Declaratory Act asserting its view that it possessed the power to levy taxes on its colonies in all cases whatsoever. For Jefferson, the story of the Stamp Act had begun in the lobby of the House of Burgess. That it ended for him when he was on the road gave him his first tactile evidence that the American story and the American cause was larger than Williamsburg and larger than Virginia. His conception of the American nation may owe something to the celebrations he watched on the Maryland shore. Interesting. The House of Burgess, apparently, as they've been showing us, has been deeply rooted in his, political formation. In 1767, Jefferson was admitted to the bar of the General Court of Virginia after his study with George Wythe. He lived at Shadwell with his mother, but traveled often. Cases took him to courthouses from Staunton to Winchester. His sister Martha wrote him a report from the garden in early June, noting that his carnations were in bloom. He was a gardener, that's right. 71 days after being planted, his interest in the garden and the farm was practical, as well as ornamental. In late November 1767, he calculated how much hay he would need to store up to his feed for his horses through the winter. Look at that. Yeah, it's interesting. Mike Bloomberg, while that out-of-touch corrupt billionaire, he said that it would be totally easy for farmers to learn how to code, and that farming was not really a difficult field. He has a very, faulty understanding of agriculture, and, assumes a sort of cartoonish image around them. But it is interesting how a smug, trashy guy like that wanted to be the president of a nation where farming is inherent to the culture. But here, Thomas Jefferson, he's showing us that he's thinking of planting, aka agriculture, for his animals, because he knows what he's gonna have to, make sure that they'll get fed through the winter when he can't grow anything. A lot of forethought, right? And he was no stupid man. So notice how we today in many areas degrade the farmer, right? And think that they're not valuable and they're just some automatonic thing that provides us food so that we can have it in our, nice homes. But still, if only more Wall Street stuck-ups and those, in the White House really had some respect for farmers. If they did have more respect for farmers and understanding of it, they probably would make better trade policies as well. And, globalists, though, they don't really have that much dedication to the agricultural sector because, they have transnational corporations kind of showing them where they needed to go. But it's cool, though, that Thomas Jefferson, again, is like, as it says here, it's practical and ornamental. So you can do farming the right way and make it look nice, right? You can grow plants for, just looking at. They'll still attract butterflies and bees and things for the birds to eat and stuff like that. But also for practicality. Because now look, the virus has exposed how we are, the supply chain and domestic production is really important. You shouldn't outsource everything. Just because it's on a global market doesn't mean that market can't be disturbed. And if it does get disturbed, you need to have a way to feed your people. Don't become dependent on other nations in such an entire way as we are today. And that all starts by, I'd say, making your political scientists and your political class have a deep respect for farming and have to, understand it. It's not just about inside trading and stuff like that and corruption and lobbyist pandering. Contemporaries recall Jefferson as a bright, enthusiastic, and intellectually curious lawyer. His practice was eclectic. One case involved the theft of a bottle of whiskey and a shirt. Another, a charge of slander in which a David Frame sued a man for saying, quote, he saw Frame, who is a married man, in bed with Elizabeth Birkin. Thomas Jefferson had to be the lawyer to somebody who is trying to get mad at another person for saying that they caught him cheating. That is funny. Jefferson's friends loved him. His clients appreciated him. His elders admired him. He was the kind of man other men thought well of and believed they could trust. Unless, as one of his best friends was to discover, a beautiful young wife was in the picture. Ooh, okay. Highlighter's not here. We are on chapter 4. And it's titled Temptations and Trials. There's a couple quotes here. You will perceive that I plead guilty to one of their charges, that when young and single I offered love to a handsome lady. Jefferson in an 1805 acknowledgement of his infatuation with Elizabeth Moore Walker. Ooh. Another quote. Under the law of nature, all men are born free, and every one comes into the world with the right to his own person, which includes the liberty of moving and using it at his own will. Jefferson and the Howell Slavery Case, 1770. Wow. The right to your own person, which includes liberty of movement and ability to, manifest and guide your own will. It's interesting. Okay, let's begin. It would have been adultery, but Jefferson was too much in love, or thought he was, to care. Attractive and virile, a powerful and charismatic man, he wanted what he wanted and he did not give up easily. Elizabeth Walker was what he wanted. She was the bride of his friend John Walker. Oh, snap. Whoa. He's coveting his neighbor's wife. Look at that. A man he had known virtually all his life. The connections between the two men were old and deep. Peter Jefferson had made Walker's father one of his own executors. Dr. Thomas Walker of Castle Hill was among those who had watched over young Thomas. The two boys followed a similar path, boarding at James Murray's school before going to the College of William and Mary. We had previously grown up together at a private school, and our boys' acquaintance was strengthened at college. John Walker recalled of his friendship with Jefferson. We loved, at least I did sincerely, each other. Wow, a bromance. Strengthened by college. Interesting. So it appears, some people are hardliners about college and will say college is just a place that it's not supposed to be like your family, you're supposed to get educated. But notice how here it's like the networking. So college has this function almost through all periods of education, connection, and networking. And even here, they had a friendship there. It's like college was, yes, he was there at College of William and Mary to get more established in himself and train himself, but he got a bromance with John Walker. So it's like when you pick your college, it's a highly important decision financially and culturally, and it's gonna stay with you. You gotta make sure it's the right place and not just streamline through it, right? You're gonna be there for a while. You might as well like it. Elizabeth Moore, known as Betsy, was a granddaughter of a royal governor and daughter of Bernard Moore, the master of Chelsea. Well, dang. Wow. Oh, that was her name? Okay, Elizabeth Moore, and then when she got married, it was changed to Walker because, John Walker's last name. Wow. So has a royal governor in her family and a master of Chelsea. Wow. So she's like a big deal. A tidewater plantation in King William County. Oh, her family had owned plantations. Wow. 2 of her brothers attended William and Mary with Jefferson and her future husband. In January 1764, a period in which he remained gloomy about Rebecca Burwell, Jefferson had reported his friend's impending marriage. Jack Walker is engaged to Betsy Moore, Jefferson wrote John Page from Williamsburg, and desired all his brethren might be made acquainted with his happiness. Oh, so it seems like he's a bit sour. Like he don't want that to happen. He's like a little bit flossing. There is irony in the phrasing, and perhaps envy. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Still smarting from his rejection by Rebecca, Jefferson was in no mood to celebrate another man's romantic good fortune. Romantic good fortune. That's interesting. People do get jealous over that. That's true. His melancholy was exacerbated by the absence of his horses, which he had sent up to the country. Without them he felt marooned, he said, for it was now out of my power to take evening and airing on horseback at any time. Oh, think of the luxury of that. Oh, just to take a horse and go. It's much different than just driving in a car. Although some people like that too, but the pace and the movement of the horse's back, it's so different. His melancholy, yeah, you do get sad, right? The letter to John Page was dated from Devilsburg, Jefferson's dark rendering of Williamsburg that had not given him the bride he wanted. He calls it Devilsburg now, so his hometown, Williamsburg, he's like, it's Devilsburg, because I can't have the lady I want. Even poor John Walker, Jefferson thought, would have to forego the joys of a pretty wife for a while longer. But I hear he will not be married this year or two. Oh, so Jefferson's like, the dude is, he's gonna marry the one I want, but at least, they won't be married for, 2 years or a year. He's taking joy in that. That's like, what's going on? He's got bad luck with the lady so far. Jefferson was wrong. Less than 5 months later, in the first week of June 1764, Betsy Moore and John Walker were married at her home at Chelsea. He gets like a third blow. He's like, at least they won't get married for a year or 2 years. And 5 months later, they're married. Dang it. By 1768, the Walkers were living with an infant daughter. Ooh, they got busy, man. They already had a baby. And as a groomsman, by 1768, the Walkers were living with an infant daughter in the house known as Belvoir, only 5 or so miles from Shadwell. Like Jefferson, Walker was a rising man in Virginia politics. Soon, Walker agreed to join a delegation bound for Fort Stanwix in New York for Indian negotiations. Oh, he's going to go do some Indian negotiating. In the will John Walker made before he left, he appointed Mr. Jefferson, my neighbor and fast friend, as first among my executors. Dang. So before he's leaving to go handle these Indian negotiations, he straight up puts Thomas Jefferson as the person to handle his, financial affairs while he's away, or if anything happens to him. And that's wow. And this whole time, Jefferson has a huge crush on that dude's wife. And they were friends together at, the William and Mary College. Wow, the guilt that Jefferson should feel at some point is like, this guy, I want his wife, but he's doing me a kindness, and he respects me so much and honors me so much to the point where he's going to put me in a will, a legal binding kind of sort of document with power. Dang, man. In the warm months of 1768, in visits to Belvoir, he found himself in her exclusive company. That's testy, right? And he seems to have fallen in love with his old friend's new wife. Given the risks he was taking, the intensity of the passion Jefferson felt must have been acute, for real. Wow, it's like an energy of like lusty, passionate adultery. Powerful magnetic sort of pull, but a hard crash if he gets busted. I don't know if he gets busted. The young wife resisted, but Jefferson did not give up the chase. And though she kept Jefferson Advance's secret, she allowed her anxiety to manifest itself to her husband indirectly. As John Walker recalled, his wife began to object to Jefferson's serving as Walker's executor, telling me that she wondered why I could place such confidence in him. Wow, so the wife is dropping passive-aggressive hints as like, hey, you shouldn't have this guy as your executor. He's trying to hit on me, essentially. And that's not good, and you shouldn't place trust in him, because you can't trust someone who's trying to constantly bang your wife. Wow, very interesting. Over the next few years, Jefferson kept up his quiet campaign. On a visit of the Walkers to Shadwell, Jefferson renewed his caresses towards Betsy, slipping a note into the cuff of the sleeve of her gown. That's elaborate and shady. He's going into her DMs. The letter, John Walker later recalled, was a paper tending to convince her of the innocence of promiscuous love. Ooh, he's straight up like, it's an innocent passion. It's promiscuous. It's naughty, but it's okay. It's natural, right? He's trying to really get inside her head to make her break her marriage vows. Perhaps from the hour of his humiliation in the Apollo room with Rebecca Burwell, Jefferson knew he expressed himself better in writing. To write Miss Walker an argued love letter, one attempting to change her mind, to convince her, was in his character. The ploy failed on this occasion. Miss Walker said that she, on the first glance, tore Jefferson's note into pieces. Later, at a house party at the plantation of a mutual friend, John Coles, a noted hunter, Jefferson watched for a chance to steal a few moments with Betsy. One evening, when the woman retired for the night, Jefferson saw his opportunity. He pretended to be sick, complained of a headache, and left the gentleman among whom I was, John Walker recalled. Slipping away, Jefferson found Betsy's room, where her husband said, "My wife was undressing or in bed." Uh-oh. Jefferson failed again. He was repulsed with indignation and menaces of alarm and ran off, said John Walker. Decades later, Jefferson confirmed the Walker story. It had come to light after a political break between Jefferson and John Walker, who had learned in the intervening years of his friend's pursuit of his wife. It had been, Jefferson said, an incorrect thing to do. Well, no doubt. Wow. Man, can you imagine the pain that John Walker must have felt? What a messed up feeling to have. But it happens. It's a human thing. When you like somebody, sometimes the draw is so strong, the bond of a bromance can't stop that, right? Maybe it would have been different if they weren't engaged. Maybe they were just dating, right? If they were just dating, it wouldn't have been as bad. But what makes it bad is, like, she clearly wasn't into it, and he kept pursuing her, right? She made it clear, but he was not listening. Frustrated by his failure with Miss Walker, Jefferson took solace in a glorious autumn of plays and politics in Williamsburg in 1768. Some years before, the Reverend Samuel Davies, a Presbyterian clergyman, had chastised Virginia for its love of drama, saying plays and romances were more read than the history of the blessed Jesus. Oh my gosh. Have both, right? I mean, read both. Do both. Offering in the Capitol in the spring had included Joseph's Edition, Drummer, Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, ooh, yes, John Gay's Beggar's Opera, and Thomas Otway's Venice Preserved and The Orphan. Now Jefferson watched performances by William Verling's Virginia Company of Comedians. That's a long name. William Verling's Virginia Company of Comedians, and of John Holmes Douglas and Henry Carey's farce, The Honest Yorkshireman. Meanwhile, Jefferson was playing the part of a patron to the arts, bringing the Italian musician Francis Alberti from Williamsburg to Amblemere. Alberti taught Jefferson on the violin. Well, that's cool. I didn't know Jefferson knew how to play the violin. The With Jefferson Circle lost its most powerful member when Francis Fauquier died at the governor's palace in March 1768. Again, we gotta read up on that guy. In his will, Fauquier expressed regret that his slaves would have to be sold after his death, and he took the then unusual step of allowing his dozen adult slaves to choose their new masters. Whoa. You know what's trippy about that? Is he's letting them pick their slaves, but he's doing this weird sort of kindness of letting them pick their master instead of just selling them to, a terrible one or just not caring. By giving them the choice to choose their slave master, they get a sort of 2-degree, hopeful, better option. But it's a dark thought. Imagine being a slave and you know you're a slave, you want your freedom, and you're given the choice of, okay, choose your slave master. And you literally have to get into that mindset of, I need to pick this guy, he's going to be my slave master. Like, how do you go about deliberating that? Oh, it's kind, feeds well, shelters, doesn't have a crazy wife, right? What a dark thought to have to do, a dark exercise. It's weird because it's like Francis Fauquier is a sort of revolutionary for doing that, doing an act of kindness for letting them pick, but you have to wonder, why didn't he just let them free? Why didn't he just say you're free now? And stipulating that the women were not to be separated from their children. You see, that was another thing that a lot of Americans don't like to acknowledge, that a lot of slave children were separated from their parents. They were. Dark times, man. Dark times. I couldn't imagine. Couldn't imagine being a slave and having my baby taken away while those same people who are separating babies go to church on Sunday. You see, this is why you have to read history, because you find the truths of how certain religions have acted throughout time. It's very sad. A man of the Enlightenment to the end. He also suggested that his body be autopsied should the cause of death be uncertain. Oh, in case he got poisoned. His hope, he said in his will, was that he may become more useful to my fellow creatures by death than I have been in my life. So he's donating his body essentially to science. So Francis Fauquier donated his body to science. Wow. Fauquier's burial 5 days later in the north aisle of Bruton Parish Church, not far from Wythe's house, marked the end of an era for Jefferson, Wythe and the other Fauquier intimates at the palace. The guests who had enjoyed the royal governor's hospitality and listened with pleasure to Jefferson's performances on the violin in the big rooms, as well as the end of a period of temperate local imperial governance. In later years, Jefferson came to think of Fauquier as the ablest man who had ever filled that office. Interesting. Norborne Berkeley, 4th Baron Beautort. 4th Baron Beautort, Norborne Berkeley. There's a lot of B's in this name. Wow. Where are you from? I'm Baron Beautort from Norborne Berkeley. Popularly referred to as Lord Beautort. It's a weird name. Boetetourt. Succeeded Fauquier as governor, and he was determined to make himself pleasant. A family of Jefferson's friends were spending an evening singing on the steps to their Williamsburg house when they heard a passerby call out, "Charming, charming, proceed for God's sake, or I will go home directly." It was Beautort, who happily joined them. The good cheer could not last. On the same day, the Virginia Gazette, were they right, reported Fauquier's death. Oh, I thought there was going to be something tabloidal. The paper published the 9th installment of a series of farmers' letters by John Dickinson, a Pennsylvanian, who argued that should London ignore American concerns, let us then take another step by withholding from Great Britain all the advantages she has been used to receive from us. Let us all be united with one spirit in one cause. With Fauquier dead, one world was beginning to end and another was being born. Notice that. Let us be united with one spirit in one cause. At the same time, Jefferson was creating chaos at Belvoir and living a cosmopolitan life in Williamsburg. He was building a new home for himself 2 miles or less than a half-hour's ride from his mother's house. He named it Monticello, Italian for Little Mountain. On Monday, August 3rd, 1767, Jefferson noted the grafting of cherry trees on the property. On Sunday, May 15th, 1768, he reached an agreement to level 250 square feet on the top of the mountain at the NE end by Christmas. Oh, northeastern end? Okay. In exchange for 180 bushels of wheat and 24 bushels of corn. 12 of those would not be due until the corn was harvested. If solid rock had to be dug, Jefferson noted in his garden book, then they would ask indifferent men to settle that part between us. Indifferent in this context meaning impartial. What is striking about Jefferson's attention to this possibility of hitting what he called solid rock is not that it might present insuperable obstacles, but that he was prepared to do whatever it took to have his way. He had decided to build there, and build he would. Wow. Wow, that's how... Wow, noted the grafting of cherry trees. So the cherry trees. They say George Washington chopped down that cherry tree. It most likely was not true. But here we mention maybe the cherry tree myth comes from Jefferson. This is interesting. What do you think, family? In exchange, right? He exchanged bushels of wheat and bushels of corn. You couldn't do that today. Maybe you could trade cryptocurrency. Alright, family. I hope you like that. It's very good. We learned a lot. Jefferson, not too good with the ladies in the beginning, right?